Hello and welcome back to Bicycle Legs and another edition of Favorite Song from Each Album. And can you please welcome back to the channel Mr. Liam Hare. Liam, wonderful to have you back on the channel.
As always, welcome to be back in such great company once again. Thank you, Bicycle Legs, for another great addition further to the channel, and can't wait to dive into a bit of Split Ends.
Yes. So we're doing Split Ends for our favorite song from each album. And this is a bit of a callback because October is the anniversary of my channel. It's been 3 years since the channel started. And the very first proper video that I had on the channel was my Split Enz studio albums ranked. So I thought it'd be interesting to go back and talk a bit of Split Enz and pick our favorite song from each album. So we'll start at the beginning. We go through these chronologically. So we'll start with the first album, work our way through to the last album. And we start off with the wonderful Mental Notes.
Yes, a beautiful album cover, must I say as well.
Yes, painted by Mr. Phil Judd himself.
Mr. Fudd.
And quite a different album from anything else that would come later in their catalogue, I think you'd agree. What did you pick for your favorite song off Mental Notes?
I went for Stranger Than Fiction. This one, interesting little song there with the very lovely synth intro done by the wonderful Eddie Rayner. And just so quirky, so it's a real showcase of what this lineup in particular was about with the Mental Notes era, leaning into a lot of prog elements within this album. And some of it obviously would carry across in the second album that we will discuss. Second Thoughts, all for international listeners, would be Mental Notes released in Europe and the rest of the world. So Stranger Than Fiction is my pick for Mental Notes.
Yeah, look, it would be my pick too, because just it's epic, isn't it? And you get Eddie, as you say, playing these beautiful synthesizers on it, but you also get Tim playing some lovely, lovely piano on this song. He
Yes.
really gets, in those early Split Enz records, he played some beautiful piano while Eddie was playing synth or mellotron or something else. And it's such an interesting lyric too. Um, just the imagery that Phil Judd comes up with in those lyrics is just incredible. Tim sings his heart out on this song. You get some great guitar playing from Wally Wilkinson. Unfortunately, this would be the only album that he would do with Split Enz. But yeah, it's a terrific song. The other song I would talk about is the opening track, Walking Down a Road, because I think
Ah,
that's just a
yes.
wonderful way to open the album. Again, with really sort of atmospheric synths and all that sort of thing. Um, and just again, the lyric is wonderful, walking down a road edged with roses, time stands still forever. Somewhere in the shadows hiding sits an old man laughing. It's just so great. And it goes through, again, it's quite proggy, even though it's only about a 5 minute long song, it goes through about 3 or 4 different movements in
Mm.
that 5 minutes. So yeah, Walking Down the Road's the other song that I would absolutely highlight here as being a wonderful song. But those who remember my very first video will know that Mental Notes was right up towards the top of my rankings. It's one of my three favorite Split Enz albums, and depending on what day you ask me, could even be my favorite.
That's
So
nice. Loved it. Love it. Yeah, I think for me, Mental Notes is top five because of the prog elements alone, and you can actually mash together a few of the songs to make one big suite, as some fans have pointed out. I think it's Stranger Than Fiction, Time for a Change, and let me check quickly. Yeah, it's Stranger Than Fiction, Time for a Change. So those two songs you could merge together and potentially put as one song, if you will.
yeah, absolutely. And I'll just quickly mention too, my son is a huge Split Enz fan, and his favorite Split Enz song of all
Yeah.
is on this album, and it's the song Maybe, which great little sort of quirky pop tune, that one. But
Mm.
yeah, it's a great song too.
Very hard to find on Seven as well. I managed to find a huge lot of Split End Sevens in Geelong here. I picked up Bowler's Brass was in there, maybe as well. So I found myself quite lucky that I found that because I never have not really found it anywhere else.
Yeah, because I think only a few hundred copies of that ever sold.
Exactly.
So then we get on to Second Thoughts, which, as you mentioned, this was called Mental Notes outside of Australia and New Zealand. There were actually a number of tracks from Mental Notes re-recorded for this album. This was produced by Phil Manzanera, the guitar player from Roxy Music. There are also some songs on here that weren't on Mental Notes. So I'll be interested to see here, Liam. Did you pick a song as your favorite that was one of the re-recordings, or did you go with one of the newer songs on this album?
I went for a newy one, and it's a one that's led by the wonderful Mr. Fudd, "Sweet Dreams," which obviously great song with a music video and everything like that. And it actually would end up finding itself into our Neil set lists when he did it with Crowded House all those years later, and still does it to this day when our fans requested via the paper aeroplane system that they got going on in their new tour.
Yeah. Nah, Sweet Dreams. What a great song. To me, it's the highlight of this album. It's the one, I've been a little bit harsh on this album in the past because of the fact that, you've got four songs that are re-recorded from Mental Notes. You've got two other songs that are re-recordings of songs from early days Split Enz that we'll probably talk about when we get into the beginning of the Enz album. So there's really not a lot of new music on this album, but Sweet Dreams, to me, is that song alone is worth the price of admission of this
Mm,
album.
certainly is.
And the film clip, if you go and watch that film clip on YouTube, it's just wonderful. They are in some of their most outlandish costumes and makeup in that film clip, and the
Uh,
hairstyles of Tim and Noel are just absolutely wonderful.
yeah.
Sort of mohawky kind of things that predate punk. So
Yeah, they were head of style. It's also the
yeah,
only outfits that didn't survive transit.
yeah.
Noel unfortunately said to me that those outfits didn't survive transit after 1977, that they got lost. The black and white
Oh, that's a
ones.
shame. No. But yeah, Sweet Dreams is great. The other song I'd really talk about here is Late Last Night, which was released as a single, although it was a slightly different version that was released as a single. It was recorded just before they went to the UK and recorded this album with Phil Manzanera. But both versions, they're quite similar and they're both really, really good. It's a great song. It's got this almost sort of tropical feel to it,
Mm, yes.
which I think is kind of interesting. Again, a great vocal from Tim on Late
Yes.
Last Night. So yeah, so that'd be the other song that I would highlight there.
Yeah, I love the album Second Thoughts. Great one, though I do think it's hindered back by those re-recordings. I think there could have been room for new material from the
Yeah,
band. But other than that, a good follow-up release.
yeah. But then we get another one of my absolute all-time favorite Split Enz albums, which is Dysrhythmia.
There we go.
Um, you know, Phil Judd was out of the band by this stage, as was Emlyn Crowther and Mike Chun. In came Mal Green on drums, Nigel Griggs on bass, and most importantly, on guitar and
Neil
vocals,
Finn.
we had a very young Neil Finn. He was still only sort of 19 years old when this album came out. Um, as I say, this is one of my absolute favorites, and it was really, really hard for me to pick a favorite song off this one. I don't know what it was like for you, Liam, but
Yeah.
what'd you end up going with?
I went with the album closer, Jamboree. I
Yeah,
think a bit of a deeper pull out of this one, like alongside the likes of maybe Parrot Fashion Love, Crossword, sorry. And again, another great opening composition from Eddie Rayner on piano, that beautiful piece that takes up about 2 minutes of the song, just really bringing in the atmosphere and drawing the album to a close, then going full berserk as it will into true Split Enz fashion throughout the song.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It is a wonderful way to close the album, and it's a song that was written by the whole band.
Yes.
So it was the band as it was just before they recorded this album. So the writing credits include a writing credit for Phil Judd and Mike Chun because they were still in the band at the time they wrote the song. But it's a wonderful album closer. I'm going to go for my favorite song with the song that closes side one, which is Without a Doubt.
Ah,
Um,
beautiful choice.
it's just such a great song. It's really melodramatic, and you get quite a bit of that sort of melodrama on this album, with songs like Charlie, as well. But without a doubt, it's just a great song. It's one of the first songs Tim wrote all by himself, without any collaboration. It's yeah, it's an incredible vocal from him. Should mention this album was produced by Jeff Emerick, who was well known for being the engineer on a lot of Beatles sessions, including the sessions for Sergeant Pepper and that sort of thing. So they had an interesting time working with Jeff Emerick, though. It wasn't always smooth sailing, but I think this album turned out really well. I hear that there is a remix version in the works of this
Really?
album. And yeah, so apparently Eddie's been working on that. So
Bless him. I've been wondering to see how this one would sound like because when I first picked it up on CD, all the way back when they had it in the library here in Geelong with the '06 remix, obviously was brought up with volume a bit, but I wonder what he could bring out of that old recording. So maybe something to look into.
yeah. So
Yeah.
then we get the album Frenzy, which was a change in direction for them. Robert Gillies, their saxophone player, was gone by this stage, so they were down to a six-piece. And yeah, this is definitely going in a more pop direction. A lot of songs to choose from. There's 13 songs on the album, or there were 12 originally, and then they added
I
Icy
see
Red,
where. Yeah, I've got
which
that.
they,
Yeah, I have the 12 copy here. This my copy's the
yeah,
12, so you probably have the 13 one then.
I've actually got both, but and
Oh,
and and I've also got the North American 1981, which has a lot
yes.
of the tracks from the Rootin' Tootin' Lootin' tapes
Oh,
on
beautiful.
side two. But yeah, what did you end up choosing from this one? Because there's a lot to choose from.
Yeah, for me, I went with the title track Frenzy.
Yep.
So quirky, and I love the kind of like the whistling in it at the start of the song that mixes in with the synth. Very quirky. And for a second pick, if I had to choose a second one, Marooned
Yeah.
as well. So both quirky, sort of Eddie Rayner sort of led songs there.
Yeah, absolutely. The song I'm going to go for is my son, I know, would absolutely agree with me with this one because this is one of his favorite Split End songs of all time too, is the album opener, and that is Give It a Whirl, or the original album opener.
Yes.
So Give It a Whirl was released as a single, didn't do anything, which I don't understand because I think it's a wonderful, wonderful song. It's written by Tim and Neil and sung by Neil. So it's the first single that Split Enz ever released with Neil Finn on lead vocals. So that's an interesting thing there. But I just think it's a wonderful, wonderful song. I love the really swirling keyboards of Eddie on this song. There's a lot of almost sort of fairground kind of keyboards on it, and I really love that about this song. It gives it a great atmosphere. And yeah, to me, it's just a really catchy single, and it's one of those songs of theirs that I think should have been a big, big hit and wasn't.
Mm.
So,
Yeah,
so
Frenzy
that's what I'm.
it was a
Yeah, sorry.
great it was a sort of I can sort of see a bit of a new wave in there as well. So they're starting to
Mm,
lean into their next album, True Colors. So for anyone who doesn't really know a bit of Split Enz, Frenzy is actually a really great starting point.
yeah, and I did do another ranking of the Split Ends catalog on I think it was Rock Daydream Nation. I'm trying to remember where, with Peter Kerr and Steve Schnee, the CD junkie. And I believe Frenzy was his favorite Split Enz album. So
Yeah.
yeah. So then we get one that I didn't cover when I did my ranking because it's not technically a studio album. It's more of a compilation of early singles and unreleased demos from before their first album. And that is The Beginning of the Ends. I love that cover. I
Beautiful.
remember getting this as a kid on cassette
Oh, okay.
and really, really loving it. Even this doesn't sound like anything else in Split Ends' catalog. You know,
No.
it's kind of folky, especially in the early stuff. And then, on side two, you start to hear a little bit of where they would go with Mental Notes and Second Thoughts. But yeah, it's the side one of it is really folky and acoustic and just very, very different and absolutely wonderful. So I'll be interested to know what you chose off this one.
Yes, I went for the side two opener, No Bother to Me.
Mm,
So that was a B-side as well, I think relegated to, I think it was either Split Ends or one of the other singles. I also, for some reason, decided Countdown was a good idea to perform this one as well. So there's a colored version, there's a black and white version of that performance out there somewhere on Peter Green's channel as well, who archives a lot of the Split End stuff. So great place to go, and no bother to me. Fantastic track, and one I always come back for the beginning of the Ends album, and of course the side one opener, Split Ends.
yeah, absolutely. No Bother to Me was actually an A side.
Ah,
It was a 1975 single, and the B side of it was Home Sweet Home, which was
ah,
recorded a couple of years earlier. But I've actually got that single. I didn't pull it out, unfortunately, but I've actually got the No Bother to Me single. It's on White Cloud Records, which is the same label that Mental Notes came out on in New Zealand. It was
okay,
actually run by their first manager, that label, Barry Coburn.
excellent.
So the song I'm going to pick is one that they ended up re-recording for Mental Notes, and that is Spellbound. But to me, the definitive version of Spellbound is the one on The Beginning of the Ends. It's sung by Tim rather than Phil. It's got lovely, lovely harmonies to it. I love the fervent strumming of the acoustic guitar in it. You get a wonderful guitar solo from Wally Wilkinson in it. You get some great sax. That's the thing too. Side two of this record, you get this different lineup of Split Ends where you had both Wally Wilkinson and Robert Gillies in the band at the same time.
Yes.
Because although Phil was still writing songs for them, he wasn't actually a working member of the band when they recorded those songs. He'd
Ah,
kind of taken a step back. He wasn't performing with them live on stage at the time. And yeah, but the version of Spellbound on here, absolutely wonderful.
mm,
It's as I say, great vocals, great keys, wonderful guitar solo, and it is Phil actually playing that acoustic guitar strumming, even though he wasn't like a full member of the band at the time. He's still doing that acoustic guitar on this song, and it's a wonderful. I believe they call that the Maori strum that he's doing on that song. So
yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So yeah, that's my favorite. But yeah, Home Sweet Home is the other one that I picked off that album because I really love that song. It's a great vocal from Phil on Home Sweet Home. And as I say, it was the B-side of No Bother to Me. So yeah, great song.
There we have it. The beginning of the ends, 1979.
Yeah. And then they would have their commercial breakthrough with True Colors. I've got a number of these. I did very early on in my channel about 3 years ago. I did a YouTube short where I pulled out a bunch of these and a bunch of my different Waiata or corroboree covers as
Ah,
well.
yes.
And yeah, this was the smash hit for them. Number one on the Australian charts, number one on the New Zealand charts. of course, big number one single with I Got You, you know, absolutely made them superstars here and in New Zealand and over in Canada as well. This album did really, really well in Canada.
Yeah.
So what'd you end up going for? Again, a lot to choose from on this album.
Oh, a lot of surefire fan favorites as well. Poor Boy. Nobody takes me seriously. I hope I never. But I went with the opening track, and I think one of my parents' favorite tracks as well from this album, Shark Attack.
Yeah.
Man, the metaphor they use, especially for the relationship, having the relationship, I guess, if you will. So having that and then having that alongside with the Shark Attack as well, beautifully done. And the remix version that they put out in 2020, done by Eddie Rayner, really brought that song out in a new light, especially hearing all the aquatic instruments playing during the instrumental breakdown section. So yeah, Shark Attack for me.
Yeah. No, it's a great choice. Um, and it's just such a great opener that I don't understand. I mean, the Americans, when they put this album out, they switched I Got You and Shark Attack so that I Got You was the opening track. I kind of know why they did that because it was the lead single, and that was very much what American record labels tended to do, was put the lead single as track one, side one. But Shark Attack is just like the perfect album opener. And I Got You, as wonderful a song as it is, it's just not an album opener, is it?
No.
So I went with another song and written by Neil Finn, really energetic song, sung by both Neil and Tim, and that is What's the Matter with You?
Yes, love that one.
Just a really great power pop song, just wonderful, urgent electric guitar strumming from Neil, a great vocal from him on the choruses, and then Tim sings the verses. And then you get this absolutely brilliant, short but brilliant organ solo from Eddie in the middle. Um, just absolutely love it to death. And Mal Green on the drums, just so good, really rock solid and in the pocket kind of drumming. Love it to death. He was perfect for this album.
Yes.
So yeah, that's the one I'm going with is What's the Matter with You? But I would have gone with Shark Attack if not for that, because that's probably my second favorite song on the album.
Yeah, a fantastic album and great selections of songs. Like Frenzy is another great starting point. So those two albums alone really could get you into Split Ends. And if you've got the CD version, there's the standalone single Things and Two of a Kind as well.
Yeah. Things is another one of those Split End singles that just absolutely sank without trace. And I don't know why. I think it should have been a smash hit. Love that song.
Yeah, it's beautiful one, and the costumes as well for the music video. I saw Eddie's one in the vaults.
Oh,
So
wonderful.
the curtains one that they did for the promotion shots and also for that music video, beautifully designed. So lovely.
Yeah.
All
So then we get
right.
Corroboree, also known as Waiata overseas. Again, I've got a number of different copies of this with different colored covers and that sort of thing that got released overseas. Um, but yeah, I mean, this was the very first Split Enz album I owned. I got a cassette copy of this given to me for my 10th birthday back in 1981, so showing my age there. But so I've got a real soft spot for this album because it was where my Split Enz journey began. Um, what did you end up picking for this one? Again, a lot of really good songs to choose from here.
Yes, definitely more of a harder one because, like you, this actually was my first ever LP I was given.
Oh, there you
So
go.
a lot of memories stuck with this one. And I went with Ghost Girl.
Yeah,
Both in the studio and in live, it sounds absolutely amazing, especially with Eddie Synth as it like drags off into the distance in the chorus. Adding that
yeah,
ghostly effect, and considering it's nearly Halloween, perfect time to bring up the song. So,
yeah,
Ghost Girl for me, without a
absolutely.
doubt.
Yeah, I believe it was inspired by some goth girls that Tim saw in London, with the ghostly white makeup and, all that sort of thing. So, yeah, I love that song too. I have to go for an obvious choice off this album though, because it was just such an impactful song for me as a kid, and that is One Step Ahead.
Beautiful
One of their
choice.
one of their all-time greatest singles. Big, I think it got into the top five here in Australia. It was a huge hit for them, but it's just one of Neil Finn's absolutely most perfect pop songs. It's not even 3 minutes long. It comes, it says its piece, it goes. It doesn't need to be any longer than that. And it's just absolutely, just a masterclass in pop songwriting. So
Yeah.
that's the one I've gone for. The other one I wanted to quickly mention is the song Ships, because I always loved the atmosphere of that. You talk about atmosphere within Ghost Girl, where you've got this kind of almost foggy kind of atmosphere with ships as well. I almost, picture ships on a dock, sort of at dawn with the fog and that sort of thing when I'm listening to the music of that song.
Mm.
So, yeah, absolutely wonderful.
All right. Moving on,
So then,
1982. Oh, sorry.
yeah, Time and Tide, my favorite Split Enz album. Um, this was one of the first albums I used my own pocket money to buy back in 1982. Um, I could have picked anything, literally anything on this album. So, what did you end up going for, Liam?
I ended up going for one that I've actually been listening to a lot over this year, Log Cabin Fever. The second
Yeah,
last track on the album. So mysterious, so moody. And the live version, I say it again, like Ghost Girl, it's fantastic live.
yeah,
So yeah, Log Cabin Fever.
yeah, absolutely. The funny thing is, a lot of people think of this album as mostly a Tim album because I think there's only about four Neil songs on this album. But you've picked a Neil song.
Yes.
I'm going to pick a Neil song too. And the song I'm going to pick is Giant Heartbeat, written by Neil and Nigel Griggs. Um, Absolutely wonderful. Again, really atmospheric. But, you talk about One Step Ahead and um, songs like I Got You and that sort of thing as being, Neil being the perfect pop songwriter. To me, this is where he's starting to expand his songwriting and get a little more exploratory. And I think he does with Log Cabin Fever as well. I feel like he's really sort of starting to go beyond the simplicity of the pop songwriting. And I love Giant Heartbeat. I think the lyric is great. I love that guitar riff in it. The ding 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 ding. And you get some wonderful atmospheres from um Eddie with these sort of sound effects on his keyboard and that sort of thing. And it's a wonderful lead vocal from Neil. Um and yeah, I love the lyrics, as I say, sun up, sun down, fade to a lookalike. Um, just yeah,
Yeah.
just wonderful song. The other song I want to point out on here is that I think doesn't get mentioned nearly as much as it should, is the song Lost for Words, which is a
Ooh.
song that Neil, Tim, and Nigel wrote together. And it's a real deep cut off this album, but it's almost Split Enz getting a little proggy again because it has some really weird time signatures in the verses and that sort of thing. And again, Tim, what a vocal. Um, and I just love this song. And again, it's a song that's under 3 minutes long. It doesn't outstay its
Yes.
welcome, but it goes through so many different little bits and sections within a
Yes.
3 minute pop song. It's just absolutely wonderful, and it's a song that just doesn't get spoken about enough, as far as I'm
Oh,
concerned.
you picked a great one of this one. The opening
Yeah,
of the lyrics, tell me so, what would you do if you were me? And it has all that sort of nautical percussion. split scattered throughout the song, especially in the live version seen on the Living Ends album from 1985.
Yeah. So then we get Conflicting Emotions. 1983, the cracks are starting to appear in the band, unfortunately. I've actually got the New Zealand pressing here that has the bonus 12-inch with
Okay,
Kia Kaha and Parasite on it.
good.
Um, so yeah, this was an album very much dominated by Neil. Tim had done Escapade, his solo album, and he was starting to drift away from the band, and the band was starting to drift away from Tim as well. They were definitely getting to a point where they've said that they were preferring Neil's songs over Tim's songs. So I'll be interested to see what you ended up going for on this album.
Yeah, I went one that's always going to be my favorite from this one. It's quirky, it's ridiculous, it's Bullet Brain and Cactus Head.
Mm,
This one, oh my golly goodness, what was Neil thinking? But I just love it. Great writing and a wonderful piano solo done. Well, actually, it could have been a synth solo depending on how the piano sounded from Eddie
mm.
Rayner.
Yeah. Actually, have you ever read Mike Chun's book, Stranger Than Fiction?
I've heard of it, but I haven't picked up a copy.
Oh, okay. Because he has an interesting theory about this song in that book. He believes that Bullet Brain and Cactus Head, respectively, are Nathan Brenner and Michael Gudinski.
Oh my,
And Nathan, for those who don't know, Nathan Brenner was Split Enz manager at the time, and Michael Gudinski was the guy who ran
mushroom.
Mushroom Records. And Nathan Brenner was actually a protege of Michael Gudinski's. So apparently, yeah, Mike Chun reckons that Bullet Brain and Cactus Head are Nathan Brenner and Michael Gudinski, and that they were always sort of butting heads and all that sort of thing, and that's where the inspiration for the song came from.
That's plausible. I'd
Yeah.
buy it.
So again, for this one, I kind of went with an obvious choice, but it was when this came out as a single, it instantly grabbed me and made me excited for the album, and that's the song Straight Old Line.
Beautiful album
Um,
opener.
Yeah, it's a great song. I bought the single back in the day as well as buying the album. And, you know, I still think, again, I feel like it should have been more successful than it was. The big hit off this album, obviously, was Message to My Girl, which is a beautiful ballad, written for Neil's wife. But Straight Old Line is, again, something unlike anything that Split Enz had done before because it's kind of jazzy, isn't it?
Yes.
And, it's got these wonderful piano and synthesizer and a little bit of guitar. There's a great guitar solo in the middle. But and I just love the chorus, don't look to the left, don't look to the right, just follow that straight old line. So yeah,
And the
absolutely had to
music
be
video. And the music video
yeah,
for that one too.
yeah. And then the other song I quickly wanted to mention off this album is Our Day, because I think it's a really heartfelt song. It's about the birth of Liam Finn, his first, Neil's first son. And yeah, it's about sort of being an expectant father and not knowing you know, what life was going to bring with him bringing a new child into the world and all that sort of thing. And it's just really, really wonderful musically too, really dramatic and that sort of thing.
Mm.
So yeah. And then finally we get the last Split Enz album from 1984. See You Around, the only album without Tim Finn on it. They're down to a five-piece at this stage. Paul Hester is in the band now as the drummer, and Noel's gone back to percussion. Interesting album because all five members of the band get to write a song on this
Yeah.
album. And I think they all do a pretty good job of their songs too. I think this is an underrated album in the Split
Mm.
Enz catalog. And it didn't do very well at the time either. It kind of got buried by the announcement of the breakup of the band and then the announcement of the Ends with a Bang tour, which I still haven't forgiven my parents for not letting me go to when I was 13 years old. Um, and yeah, there's a lot of great songs to choose from here. So what did you end up going with?
Yes, I've got two of them, but one is an album and one of them is a non-album B-side. So
Hmm.
the album one I've chosen for is This Is Massive, which is a Paul Hester creation, and it ended up with going on with Crowded House on their first tour. I love that song. It's so quirky, it's so him, and it's so very Australian, I feel, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, important to for any of our viewers who may not know this too, Paul Hester is the only member of Split Enz who was Australian.
Yes.
So every other member of Split Enz was either a New Zealander or a Brit, an Englishman. So Paul Hester was the only person who was ever in Split Enz who was actually an Australian. So,
Yes.
and yeah, it does really have that kind of larrikin feel to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It very
But
much does.
I remember seeing video in the early days of Crowded House of them sort of busking on a street corner doing This Is Massive. And funnily enough, when Crowded House would do it and they would be busking it, it would usually be Neil singing the song. Whereas
Yeah.
on the album here, it's Paul doing the lead vocal. So
Yes, and I think it's Paul on the Ends with the Bang tour as well who does it, obviously.
yeah. So what was the non-album B-side that you had picked out?
I had Overdrive, which is the
Yes.
B-side to I Walk Away. A very awesome instrumental coming
Mm.
from that later end of their career.
Yeah, absolutely. Did they end up including that? They didn't, did they, on the 2006 remaster, did they?
No,
But if you get the old box sets from, I don't remember exactly when they came out, sometime in the 90s, there were two box sets that were like covered their whole career. And each one of those two box sets had a bonus disc of B-sides and demos and all that sort of thing. And Overdrive was included on the second box set outtakes disc. So
yeah.
probably very hard to find these days, but if you can track it down, well worth it.
Yes, the CD, I believe that was called on that box set Rear Ends.
Yes, it's odds and ends on the first one and it's rear ends on the second one.
Yes.
But again, I went with a slightly obvious choice with this one, which is I Walk Away. I think again that should have been a huge hit single for them. I think it's an absolutely catchy track. I will say, Crowded House re-recorded it with slightly different lyrics for the US version of their debut album. I don't like the Crowded House version nearly as much as I like the Split Enz version. I,
Nah.
I think the Split Enz version is much, much better.
Yeah.
But the other song I wanted to single out here is Years Go By. I think it's an absolutely beautiful song. It's a co-write between Neil and Eddie. And yeah, it's a more relaxed song until you get into the instrumental section in the middle where Neil lets rip one of his best ever guitar solos in the middle of Years Go By. It's one of the ones that apparently, again, in Mike Chun's book, Stranger Than Fiction, he talks about it being one of only two or three guitar solos that Neil played with Split Enz that Neil himself was actually really, really proud of.
Yeah.
So,
There you go.
so yeah. But my main choice is I Walk Away. Just a wonderful song and kind of summing up how Neil felt about the end of Split Enz.
Yeah.
So there you have it, everyone. Those are our picks for our favorite songs from each Split Enz album. Please do let us know in the comments what are your favorite Split Enz songs because we'd love to hear from you. Liam, thank you so much for doing the show. Really appreciate having you back on the channel.
As always.
If you haven't seen a recent show that Liam and I both did over on Rock Daydream Nation, where we did an all-Australian panel with Peter Kerr, please do go and check that out. It's a wonderful, wonderful show. I will also leave links in the description for Liam's radio programs and that sort of thing so that you can go and check those out. Even if you don't live here in Australia or in Geelong, you can catch the Pulse 94.7. Is that right?
Yes, it
Yeah.
is.
You can catch them on the internet, so you can live broadcast those, live stream all their shows. Please do like, share, and subscribe. It really does help the channel out. If you're new to the channel, please go and have a look at some of my other videos. I have everything playlisted, so if you want to check out some of my other favorite songs from each album show, I have a playlist for those. If you want to see some of my studio albums ranked shows, I have a playlist for those. And if you want to see my appearances on other people's channels, like Rock Daydream Nation, I also have a playlist for those. If you want to follow me on social media, I'm at bicyclelegs on Instagram, Twitter, and a bunch of other places. I also have a dedicated bicyclelegs Facebook page. Links are all in the doobly-doo. Please do give those all a follow and join in the conversation. I'd really love to have you there. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.